Good morning. I'm really excited today. I hope that you enjoy hearing this as much as I enjoyed preparing it. Today, I want to share with you about an author whose books have always been spiritual companions of mine since I was a teenager. He writes about flying and about love, about adventures with ferrets and reluctant messiahs, but he's really writing about the deepest truths of consciousness, reality, and our divine nature. That is Richard Bach. When I first discovered his work, I didn't know why it resonated so deeply. I just knew that reading Illusions or One felt like remembering something I'd always known, but sometimes had forgotten. It wasn't until years later that I learned that Bach was a Christian Scientist, which is one of Unity's New Thought cousins, and suddenly it all made sense. He was exploring the same metaphysical principles I'd grown up with in Unity, the same understanding that God is not separate from us but expressed through us, the same teachings that our thoughts create our experience, the same recognition that what we call limitations are really just beliefs that we've accepted as truth. Bach isn't the first name that comes up when we talk about Unity writers. We think of Charles and Myrtle Fillmore, Eric Butterworth, Catherine Ponder, maybe some others. But I do believe that Bach deserves a place in that conversation because his stories illuminate Unity's 5 basic principles with crystalline clarity. He just does it through seagulls and barnstormers instead of traditional spiritual language. Today we're going to explore Unity's 5 principles through the lens of Bach's work, drawing primarily from Illusions, The Adventures of a Reluctant Messiah, Jonathan Livingston Seagull, and The Bridge Across Forever, and maybe a little bit from the Ferret Chronicles. These aren't just entertaining stories, they're profound spiritual teachings disguised as adventures. So let's begin our journey into the illusions that limit us and the truths that set us free. Unity Principle 1, God is absolute good, everywhere present. Let's start with the foundation of everything, the nature of God, the divine presence of ultimate reality. In Illusions, Richard Bach meets Donald Shimoda, a former mechanic from Indiana who discovers he was a messiah. Donald has this wonderful way of pointing to the divine without getting caught up in religious language. At one point, he gives Richard the Messiah's Handbook, a small book that opens to exactly the right page whenever you need guidance. But there's the profound teaching that the handbook doesn't contain information that comes from outside. It reflects what you already know within. It's not a separate authority telling you what to do. It's a mirror showing you your inner wisdom, your own connection to the divine. Donald teaches that you're never given a wish without also being given the power to make it true. Think about that. If the power to manifest is always present with the wish, then the creative force, God, must be right there, right now, not somewhere far away waiting to be petitioned. In Jonathan Livingston Seagull, Jonathan discovers this same truth through his practice of flight. When he's struggling to break through to higher speeds, the elder goal tells him, you need to understand that heaven is not a place, and it's not a time. Heaven is being perfect. And then the elder goal adds the kicker, you're free to go anywhere you want. All you have to do is know that you're already there. The flock believes that God is distant, punishing, separate. They have rules about proper seagull behavior, consequences for disobedience. But Jonathan discovers that the divine isn't up there judging him. It's right here, expressing as him, inviting him to remember his true nature. In the Ferret Chronicles, Budgerun and Bethany discover infinite parallel worlds, each one a different expression of possibility. And here's the profound realization: in every world, in every possibility, the divine presence is fully present. There's nowhere you can go, no choice you can make, no version of reality you can access where God is absent. This understanding changes everything. If God is everywhere present, And there is no place that we can be separated from divine love, divine wisdom, and divine support. Our seeming problems aren't happening in a God-forsaken place. They're happening within the presence of infinite good, even if we can't see it yet. When we truly grasp this principle, we stop looking for God in special places, special practices, special states of consciousness. We start recognizing divine presence right here, right now, in this moment, in this breath, and in this experience, whatever it is. Unity principle 2 is we are spiritual beings created in God's image. And this really brings us to the question of who we are. Not who we think we are, not who we've been told we are, but our true essential nature. The central teachings of illusions is that we're not limited beings hoping to connect with divine. We are divine beings who have convinced ourselves we're limited. Donald didn't become a Messiah by achieving something special. He became a Messiah by remembering what was always true. You are led through your lifetime by the inner learning creature, the playful spiritual being that is your real self. Bach writes, not the fearful ego, not the limited personality, but the playful spiritual being. That is who you really are. Jonathan Livingston Seagull's entire journey is about remembering his divine nature. The flock tells him he's just a seagull, meant to fly only for food, meant to accept limitations as natural. But something in Jonathan knows better. He knows he's more than his body, more than his circumstances, and more than the flock's definition. When Jonathan finally breaks through to higher consciousness, the elder gull tells him, you will begin to touch heaven, Jonathan, in that moment that you touch perfect speed. And that isn't about flying 1,000 miles an hour or 1,000,000 or flying at the speed of light, because any number is a limit and perfection doesn't have limits. Perfect speed is being there. Being there, not getting there, not achieving there, not earning there, being there, because that's our nature. We are already spiritual beings. We're already created in the image and likeness of the infinite. We're already whole, complete, and divine. The problem isn't that we need to become something we're not. The problem is that we've forgotten what we are. In Bridge Across Forever, Bach writes about recognizing Leslie across time and space. But it's not just a romantic recognition, it's a spiritual one. He sees past her personality, past her history, past her human story, to the eternal spiritual being she is. And she sees the same in him. That's what it means to see each other as spiritual beings created in God's image. It's seeing past the surface story to the divine essence. It's recognizing Christ consciousness, not as something rare and special, but as our shared true nature. Charles Fillmore taught that we are expressions of God, individualized, not separate from God, but unique expressions of the one divine presence. Bach's characters discover this truth over and over. Jonathan isn't separate from the perfection he seeks. He is that perfection, learning to express it. Donald isn't separate from the power he demonstrates. He is that power, choosing to manifest it consciously. When we remember we're spiritual beings created in God's image, everything changes. We stop begging for what we already have. We stop trying to earn what we already are. We stop searching for home when we realize we never left. Unity Principle 3. We create our experience through our thinking. Illusions is essentially a manual on this principle. Donald tells Richard, the world is your exercise book, the pages on which you do your sums. It's not reality, although you can express reality there if you wish. You're also free to write nonsense or lies or to tear the pages. We are free to write possibility or limitation, love or fear. The most powerful lesson in illusions comes when Richard is struggling with his own limitations. Donald tells him, you're never given a dream without also being given the power to make it true. You may have to work for it, however. The however is important. The work isn't out there in physical reality, muscling things into place. The work is in here, in our consciousness, aligning our thoughts and beliefs with the reality we wish to experience. Jonathan discovers through trial and error, every time he crashes, every time he fails, he learns that his thoughts determine his reality. When he thinks, I can't go faster than this, he can't. When he thinks seagulls aren't meant to fly like this, he falls or fails. But when he thinks I am unlimited, when he thinks I am perfect speed, his reality shifts to match. The elder goal teaches him to fly as fast as thought. To anywhere that is, you must begin by knowing that you've already arrived. That's not positive thinking or wishful hoping. That's understanding that consciousness creates reality. The ferrets learn that by thinking about different possibilities, by imagining different choices, they can literally access different realities. They're not pretending or fantasizing. They're navigating consciousness. Their thoughts don't just affect their reality. Their thoughts are the mechanism by which they choose which reality to experience. In Bridge Across Forever, Bach writes about creating his relationship with Leslie. But it's not just about attracting her through visualization. It's about becoming the person who would naturally share life with someone like her. It's about thinking the thoughts that create the reality from the inside out. This principle can be challenging because it seems to suggest that if we're experiencing difficulty, it's our fault. But that's not the teaching. The teaching is that we have power, not that we're to blame. There's a huge difference. We live in a world where collective consciousness has created certain patterns, where thinking has momentum, where we're influenced by the thoughts and beliefs of those around us. But even within those conditions, we have creative power. We can choose our thoughts, we can shift our beliefs, we can align our consciousness with truth rather than limitation. Romans 12:2 says, do not conform to the patterns of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. That is Unity Principle 3. Transform your mind and your experience transforms with it. Unity Principle 4. Through prayer and meditation, we align with God. Prayer and meditation aren't convincing a distant deity to help us. They're about aligning our consciousness with truth, with divine presence, with what's already real. In Illusions, the Messiah's Handbook is a form of prayer, but notice how it works. You don't beg it for answers. You open it with a question, and it reflects back what you already know. That's real prayer, not petition, but alignment, not asking for something outside of yourself, but recognizing what's already within. Donald teaches Richard, listen to what you know instead of what you fear. I have to repeat that. Listen to what you know instead of what you fear. That's meditation in its essence. Quieting the fearful, chattering mind so you can hear the still, small voice of inner wisdom, the divine speaking through your own consciousness. In The Bridge Across Forever, Bach describes moments of complete presence with Leslie, moments when time disappears, when there's no past or future, just infinite now. Those moments are prayers without word. They're meditation without technique. They're pure alignment with eternal presence where God is fully available. The ferrets discover that by quieting their busy minds, by stopping their frantic doing, they can sense which parallel world to move towards. They can feel which possibility is calling them. That inner sensing, that spiritual intuition, it only becomes clear when we're still enough to hear it. Unity teaches that prayer is more than words. It's affirmation, speaking truth. It's denial, releasing false beliefs. It's meditation, listening for divine guidance. It's contemplation, resting in the awareness of God's presence. Bach's characters show us what this looks like in actual practice. Jonathan affirms his ability to fly beyond limits. He denies the flock's beliefs that seagulls are meant for limitation. He meditates through the practice of perfect flight, and he contemplates the nature of speed, perfection, and freedom. Donald affirms the power of consciousness. He denies the apparent solidity of material limitation. He meditates by living in complete present moment awareness. He contemplates the nature of reality, teaching, and awakening. The practice isn't complicated. It's about regularly returning to truth, regularly aligning with divine presence, and choosing to think from our spiritual nature rather than our fearful personality. As it says in Philippians 4:8, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. Unity Principle 5. Knowing and understanding principles is not enough. We must live them. This principle is the one that transforms spiritual knowledge into spiritual experience. In Illusions, Richard spends a good portion of the book intellectually understanding what Donald teaches, but not living it. He gets it in theory, he can explain it, but when it comes time to walk through the propeller, to manifest what he needs, or trust consciousness over circumstance, he hesitates, he doubts, he falls back on old patterns. Donald is patient but clear. Learning is finding out what you already know. Doing is demonstrating that you know it. Teaching is reminding others that they know just as well as you. We are all learners, doers, and teachers. Learners, doers, teachers, not just learners. The knowing must become doing. Jonathan Livingston Seagull doesn't just understand that flight can be spiritual practice, he lives it every day, despite exhaustion, despite the flock's rejection, despite crashes and failures. He doesn't just know the truth about his divine nature, he's expressing it through dedicated practice. And here's what's beautiful when Jonathan reaches the higher conscious or higher dimensions. He doesn't stay there basking in enlightenment. He chooses to return to earth to teach. He's living what Peter 4:10 tells us. Each of you should use whatever gifts you have received to serve others as faithful stewards of God's grace in its various forms. Jonathan uses his gift of flight, his understanding of divine nature, not just for his own enlightenment, but to serve other goals who are ready to remember their own greatness. Because knowing truth creates a responsibility to live it, share it, and demonstrate it. The ferrets don't just learn about parallel worlds theoretically, they navigate them. They make choices that take them from one reality to another. They live the truth that consciousness creates experience by consciously choosing their experience. In Bridge Across Forever, Richard doesn't just understand that soulmates exist, he searches for Leslie. He does the work. He faces his fears about relationship. He lives the truth about love, even when it's scary or requires vulnerability or when it challenges his independence. This is where so many spiritual seekers get stuck. We read the books, we attend the talks, we understand the principles, but we don't live them. We know that thoughts create experience, but we keep thinking the same fearful thoughts. We know we're divine beings. We act from limitation. We know God is everywhere present, but we live as if we're separate and alone. And here's the thing. Living these principles isn't about being perfect. Jonathan crashes constantly while he's learning. Richard doubts and resists throughout his time with Donald. The ferrets make mistakes as they navigate parallel worlds, but they keep practicing. They keep living what they know, even imperfectly. That's what it means to live these principles. Not to execute them flawlessly, but to keep returning to them, to keep choosing truth over fear, to keep expressing your divine nature, even when circumstances suggest you're limited, to keep recognizing God's presence, even when it's difficult, keep aligning your thoughts with the reality you wish to create, and keep practicing prayer and meditation, even when it feels like nothing's happening. The spiritual life isn't about knowing, it's about being. And being comes through doing, through practice, through living what we know again and again until it becomes who we are. Navigating by the stars is a experience. I want to invite through our meditation. So let's take a moment to move from understanding these principles to experiencing them. So go ahead and find a comfortable position and allow your eyes to close. Just sink into the support. It's holding your body. Become comfortable. Take in a deep breath, and as you release it, let your body settle more deeply into a comfortable position. And when you're ready, imagine yourself sitting in a biplane, a bright yellow one, 1928 Fleet biplane with an open cockpit. You can feel the wind in your face, smell the mixture of fuel and summer grass, and hear the engine's steady hum. You're preparing for a journey, but this isn't just any flight. This is a journey through the 5 principles that govern spiritual reality. As you taxi down the field preparing for takeoff, remember Principle 1. God is absolute good, everywhere present. Feel that presence now in the wind, in the engine's vibration, in the earth beneath your wheels, in the sky above. There's nowhere you can fly where divine presence won't be fully with you. Let that truth settle into your awareness. God is here. God is everywhere. God is the very substance of this journey. You lift off, and as you climb, you remember Unity Principle 2. You are a spiritual being created in God's image. You're not just a person in the plane. You're infinite consciousness choosing to express in this moment, this flight, this experience. Feel into your true nature. Not the small self that worries and doubts, but the vast spiritual being that you really are. The one that's always been, always will be, cannot be limited by circumstances. As you level off and begin to cruise, you remember Unity Principle 3. You create your experience through your thinking. Look at the landscape below. What you see is a reflection of your consciousness. You're not a victim flying through fixed reality. You're a creator choosing what to experience. Take a moment to notice any limiting thoughts you're carrying. Old beliefs about what's possible, fear about the future, doubts about your worthiness. And now, like Donald, choose to think something different. Choose a thought of possibility, or love, or truth. Watch how the landscape shifts subtly as your thinking shifts. You see another biplane approaching. It's Donald's travel air. He waves, signaling you to follow. You fly in formation with him, remembering Unity Principle 4. Through prayer and meditation, you align with divine presence. This moment of flying in formation, this shared silence between 2 planes, this is meditation. You're not trying to accomplish anything. You're simply being present, aligned, connected. Feel that alignment now. Your breath, your awareness, and divine presence all moving together in perfect harmony. Donald peels off, heading in his own direction, and you remember Unity Principle 5. You must live these truths, not just know them. As you continue flying, you realize that every choice you make in this journey is a choice to either live from truth or from fear, to express your divine nature or to contract into limitation, to recognize God's presence or believe in separation, to think creatively or habitually, to stay aligned or to drift. You're not trying to be perfect, you're simply practicing. Just like Jonathan practicing his flight roles, you're practicing living what you know. Sometimes you'll soar, sometimes you'll wobble, sometimes you'll doubt, but you keep flying. You keep practicing, you keep living the truth as best you can in each moment. In a moment, we'll enter into 1 minute of silence. During the silence, simply fly. Be present in your biplane, in your journey, in your spiritual practice. If thoughts arise, Like other planes crossing your path, simply notice them and return to your flight. Return to the 5 principles that guide your way. As we return from silence, take a deep breath and begin to feel your physical body again. You're bringing the journey back with you. The 5 principles aren't left in the meditation, they're living truths that carry into every moment. When you're ready, gently open your eyes and return to this room, knowing that your spiritual biplane is always available, always ready to take flight. Richard Bach's books aren't just entertaining stories, they're invitations to remember what we already know but have forgotten. Invitations to live from our spiritual nature, invitations to create consciously, invitations to practice alignment with the divine in every moment. But knowing and living are 2 different things. That's the journey, that's the practice. That's what these 5 principles invite us into, not just understanding, but embodiment. As Donald told Richard, and I now say to you, you teach best what you most need to learn. So what do you need to learn right now? What principle is life inviting you to embody more fully? What truth is calling for your attention, your practice, your lived demonstration? Then I close with the reluctant Messiah's promise. There is no problem without a gift in its hands. Your setback is not a detour. It is the curriculum. Your wish is never given without the power to make it true. So spread your wings, awkwardly, imperfectly, but spread them. Keep practicing. Keep living what you know. And when you forget, open the handbook of your own heart to any page, and it will always say the same thing. You're already there. And so it is. Thank you.